Welcome to the Spectators Podcast. Here are your hosts, Corey and Jeff.
Welcome, spectators, to another exciting episode of the Spectators Podcast, episode 41. Corey, how you doing?
My mind is at fog right now because you said episode 41 and I was like, wait, are we? We are absolutely on episode 41. It has been a little bit since we've been together recording here, but holy, has a lot happened in those said 2 or so weeks.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, no, as your hat will show, I haven't been watching a lot of hockey because I've been enthralled in the world of WWE.
I'd have to say the same, to be honest.
Yeah. And it's the road to WrestleMania, and I think they're doing a fantastic job to remind us it's the road or roads to WrestleMania, as we've seen. But I think that's where we need to start is we are heading into Elimination Chamber, and the wrestling world has been marred in the debate of, is it Cody or is it Sami?
Well, I think it's an interesting question to ask, right? Is it Cody or is it Sami? What angle are you looking at that from? Like, are you saying, is Cody your guy? Is Sami your guy? Are you questioning, is Cody going to win the titles? Is Sami going to win the titles? Or whatever. I think, we're in such an interesting position that we probably haven't seen the World Wrestling Entertainment or Federation, if we go back to the 90s, have been in this position for a very, very long time, where two really hot baby faces right now, like, these guys are like as over with the crowd as you can get, both of them. And we're in unprecedented times with the WWE, I'd say, especially with just like how everything is gone and like how fans have reacted to things over the last few months. We're in a position now where a lot of those people, I think, that were cheering for the Bloodline, that were cheering for Roman months ago, are booing him like crazy because they're so against him, only because they're so into the characters and the storyline of these two heroes almost that are presented to us, right?
Like heroes in different essence too, right? Like Cody has the heroic story of coming back from injury, and then you have the finisher story, which I think is such a brilliant way to phrase it and to frame it as you move forward. And then you have, of course, Sami Zayn, who is starting to break down the bloodline and sort of, is that anti-hero or whatever you want to call him, that was, in the faction, doing the bad things, and now has realized his ways, and is ready to take on, the bully in the schoolyard.
Well, I think Roman, or sorry, I think Cody said it best on Monday. He specifically said to Sami, there's holes in the bloodline. There are issues in the bloodline. There are problems in the bloodline that we've never seen before at this level. Mm-hmm. And those problems, those holes, those cracks in the bloodline is because of you, Sami. You were the one who created those. And he wasn't saying it in a negative way. He's bringing up a point that a lot of, I think, and this is why he resonates so well with the crowd, because he's bringing up a point that we all see, that we've all been talking about as wrestling fans for a really long time, that you look at a guy like that, you think, geez, yeah, he knows what's up. Like, he knows what he's doing, right? He's eating, those words that he's hearing online or he's hearing everybody say, and he's kind of saying, let's go with it. Let's go with the community. Let's go with the people. And we're at a point right now where he said those words and everybody could relate to it. Everybody can relate to that.
Well, I think, and I'm curious what your thoughts on this too is, I'm very impressed on how they have stick handled this situation. Because coming out of Royal Rumble, you and I had that discussion of what do you do now? Because you have Cody who won the Rumble, who fans like, and then you have Sami who just literally took a chair to Roman. And both guys had legitimate rights to dethrone Roman, right? And instead of sort of, of course, everyone's talking about Daniel Bryan and Batista, right? That's what everyone's referencing. Instead of, the WWE, how they handled it there and sort of trying to ignore it and sort of then, getting egg on their face. Daniel Bryan, I believe, had to wrestle Triple H. If he won, he got in the triple threat, and then he won at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Instead of that, they were like, you know what? Let's take this face on. You had Cody come out after Royal Rumble and just focus on him that night. He didn't talk about Sami. And then you had Sami come out that Friday after Rumble and continue his storyline with Roman, where he challenged him for the belts at Elimination Chamber. And then this week has been a brilliant example of what you should do, in my opinion, when it comes to wrestling, is listen to the fans. They put Cody. Oh, sorry, I'm missing the Heyman and
the Cody Heyman
and Cody Hagen segment too. It's been a lot longer than I thought. So you had that too, which is a bit of a mix.
That was a great segment. Like we can get into it, but just like the personal side of this, the personal side of the touch that they put into this story really helps you resonate well. And to your point, Cody and Sami, and I guess Triple H will say as head of creative, were put in a spot where you really put yourself up against a wall, and
you put yourself into a corner.
You booked yourself into a corner, and we talked about that before, but like, we're at the point now where you're really getting the chance to see what Triple H can do. When he's booking himself into a corner, or it's not even his fault necessarily. The storyline almost booked itself into a corner for him.
Which is a good thing if you think about it. It means he's telling such a compelling story.
But you look at the way how this is going to pan out, and we still have some things to see, right? We still have some things to see. But the way that this has panned out and how it's going to pan out up to WrestleMania, this is really his opportunity to shine and to show, like, oh, all right, when I have a lot going on, this is what I can do. And I think that it's a really tough spot to be in, right? Because you could be either really loved by the fans for the choices you made, or you could be really hated and really despised for putting down one wrestler that the fans didn't really want you to. And you're not always going to make the internet wrestling community happy. You're not going to make the fans happy all the time. I mean,
no.
The Undertaker lost his winning streak at WrestleMania, and I if that can happen, anything can happen.
True.
I look at that very heavily, like almost like Wayne Gretzky getting traded away from the Edmonton Oilers.
It can happen.
Anything can happen. Now, looking at the situation, you're right. They've built up such a good story that they've almost tied these two stories parallel to each other, which is so cool to see.
Well, what's been brilliant is that they've embraced it, right? Because so the 2 weeks leading up to what we saw on Raw, with Cody and Sami being in the same ring, you saw the continuation of both faces' stories keep going, right? Because you had Sami attack Roman in 1 week, and then you had Sami, talking with Jay, right? Sort of really continuing that bloodline piece. And of course, you had Cody and Heyman do their excellent promo on
and
Raw.
There's some history there too, which is really cool.
And they're playing it really well, right? Like, and apparently most of that promo with Heyman and Cody was ad-libbed. Actually, most of Cody's promos apparently are ad-lib, which is, to me,
they're giving him a lot of creative control, which I'm all for.
And he's killing it, right? But
he's showing why he came back. He's showing why he's at that top level and why he's getting this opportunity.
And why he can probably beat Roman Reigns. We'll get to that in a second. But I think what is brilliant to me, what the WWE has done, has then put them in the same ring and said, this is not about Cody versus Sami. It's about the two heroes uniting to fight the evil, which is Roman Reigns. And you had, Cody, put him over, right? and really like in a brilliant way, in a sense that it doesn't stop Cody's story to WrestleMania, right? Like, and when he said it's Cody versus Sami Zayn, the fans popped, right? Like they've done this in such a good way that regardless of who Roman Reigns is facing at WrestleMania, and it could be all three of them, Zayn, Cody, and Roman in one match, right? They done it in such a way that it's so far away from the Daniel Bryan situation, because fans are behind both people, right? Like, Sami came out on Raw, right, and he got a cheer, but when Cody came out to his song, he got an equal to almost louder pop than him. And then when they did that promo, like in a promo segment, they were chanting, "This is awesome." When do you hear that in a promo?
When do you hear that in a promo? And you also heard fans chanting Sami, Sami, and then other fans chanting Cody. So you know that you're doing something right, because you're getting both wrestlers at the same time, which are both your baby faces. They should be chanted.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting chants, and I think, let's put it this way, and we'll get into the details a little bit more. But from my perspective, and I don't know if you agree with this, but from my perspective, I feel I'm convinced that I would be happy regardless if it beat Roman.
Mm-hmm.
I would also be happy if neither faced Roman at WrestleMania, and they actually did face each other. I would be happy with either way. I think they've done such a good job that if the WrestleMania match is Roman and Cody, it's good. If it's Sami and Cody, it's good. If it's Sami and Cody, it's good. If it's Roman and Sami, if it's all three, it's good. If Roman splits the belts and does 2 matches, it's good. I don't care. At this point, I think I'm compelled enough and convinced enough that regardless of how this goes down, it's going to be good. Now, I'm also quite content if Sami Zayn loses the match. It doesn't win the titles, because they've done this so well.
At Mania or at EC?
Regardless. If he doesn't win a title, and Cody wins both of them, or Cody wins one, or however they decide to split it up, I would be happy. I think they've done and I don't know if you agree, and I know a lot of people probably would disagree with me here, because I think a lot of people do want Sami to win, but I feel like they've just built up so much, and Sami's had the opportunity to really shine here, that I'm happy for what has come out of all of this, for Sami to really get showcased, because that's ultimately, I think, more deserving, or he's been more deserving of that than many, and for him to have this opportunity to showcase himself, like, it may lead to future opportunities. So I'm not too bummed out even if he loses. Ultimately, my humble, honest wrestling brain idea of what should happen is, there is no doubt in my mind Cody wins those titles. Whether it's 1, whether it's 2, Cody is the face right now that really, like, ultimately, in so many different ways, makes sense to beat Roman. He makes sense to be that one to dethrone the Giant, right? And I'm saying Roman as the Giant, right? He's got this he's kind of got a stranglehold over the whole WWE right now. And I feel like the reason why I feel like that way is because Cody presents himself in a way that he is a dynasty on his own. He's building up to that, his backstory, his time with WWE in the past, his time coming back, his time kind of learning again in the indies, and like how much better he's come back out of it. Like, this guy, he is the epitome of, I believe, what Vince would have always wanted. He is such a good spokesperson for the WWE. He's so professional, good businessman, articulates himself well. Let's take Roman out of the picture for a moment, right? Cody being on Jimmy Fallon or Conan or, The View or whatever the case is, whenever they're on any kind of like, morning shows and things like that, like, he's gonna, I see the way he speaks, and I see that he will represent the company from a business perspective in a very warm light, like kind of like John Cena did. And I know those are big words, because John Cena is, honestly, he's incredible with his promotion skills. But I see Cody in that area, right? He's able to be, I think, what Vince always wants is almost your top guy to be another promoter. And
if you look at the situation of WWE 2 selling,
at that point too, yeah.
Not that Roman's not a good face of the company. I think he is very much, and he's done a good job, I think, of being the face in the last 2 years and taking this bloodline story. Like I was just thinking too, in this moment we have these two hot baby faces. I'm not sure, and you've got more history than this than I do. Like when the last time a faction was this dominant for this long and has kind of kept the story, like it was getting a bit stale, but then they've reunited it with Solo and Sami. Like I can imagine it's been a while since they've had a dominant a faction this relevant for as long as it's been.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this almost a year ago, and a little bit later than that. We talked about how stale the bloodline had been getting, and I think we brought it up on multiple occasions. Even with Solo there, they were still getting a little bit stale, and I think the Sami points kind of made things a little interesting, but there were still stale points at some points, right? Even with Sami and the bloodline, but it started to get better the more we started to think, hey, could this guy be plotting them? Could this guy be somehow going to be the next guy to get in and get a title shot?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you to your comparison point, like the last faction that I can think was like this over in wrestling goes back to probably DX or NWO. We want to talk, but I'm not talking about NWO in WWE standpoint. I'm talking about NWO in WCW. So Eric Bischoff's NWO. I think that was a true epitome of what NWO was supposed to be, and they got over because of star power. Like you think about the fact that they had Razor Ramon, they had Hulk Hogan, they had Diesel, Kevin Nash, like they had star power, and then they were bringing in other people that had star power, and I think that's why NWO got over. The Bloodline doesn't have that level of star power. They got Roman Reigns. It's the story that really pushed them and compelled them forward. So I think NWO honestly could be driven down to luck of the draw of it worked at the time. But the Bloodline has just it's built up over so much time. And it took a little bit of time to get going, right? But I think definitely I would say at that time probably would be the most comparable, and we're talking like the 90s, so it's a long time since we've seen something this good.
And it's right around Mania time, right? So it's everything's getting hot at the right time,
and it's all gonna come and crashing down and burn. And I think this is what people are excited about, is because we've had the Bloodline kind of, they've been the epitome of the WWE over the last 2 years, especially over this last year.
They dragged it through the pandemic, basically.
They dragged us through the pandemic, and we've had almost a whole year of Roman being dual champion, almost a whole year. Because he won them at WrestleMania.
He most likely will be heading into WrestleMania as champion.
Most likely, right? And the Usos are almost at the same time. They've held the both titles for quite some time. But I guess I got to take a second and say, like, out of the whole Bloodline, out of Roman and out of the Usos, like an applause to the Usos, because like they have had so many matches and so many title defenses over the last year.
Yes, they have
a lot. And they've put in a lot of work, and I'm sure they're both going through some sort of like grueling injuries in the background that they don't talk about. They deserve a bit of a break, but just I commend that the work that they've put in. That I see Jay at least coming out of this as a potential singles star, and I think that's why we're seeing. We'll get into it, but I think that's why we're seeing some of the storyline that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely, and I think the main highlight of the beginning segment before we get into, because we're also going to be reviewing previewing Elimination Chamber coming up,
everything, yeah,
right. That should be exciting. It's just how the excitement they built for this storyline and how they've really brilliantly stick handled it, right? Because and to me, and we can get into it when we talk about the main event of EC, is how they built it to continue on past Elimination Chamber, right? Because now you have Cody and Sami aligned, right? So you can use that in so many different ways, right? Past Elimination Chamber and building the story of WrestleMania, whether that's Cody versus Roman, Cody versus Sami, or a triple threat, right? Like you have the avenue for each road now because of
you have
how they built up.
opportunity, which is again we went back to Triple H kind of pulling himself out of a corner, and now he's at a point where he has opportunity. And what better position can you be in than having opportunity to go in different directions? Because if something falls flat on its back and doesn't work out, you have another opportunity, another direction.
Or someone gets injured, which has been
That
happening
too.
a lot lately
A
in
lot.
both promotions, right? Like there was a match, we'll get into it, there was a match that was canceled due to some injury for Elimination Chamber, or rumored to be at least. But if injury happens, to the Usos or something like that, because we'll get into what they might be doing beyond EC as well. But yeah, like you've opened the door for so many different possibilities, right? Because if it's not, the Usos being involved in some way in this storyline, you can still do a triple threat, right? Or something like that. And I think fans would be equally satisfied with the outcome because of how they built this story, right? With the bloodline being, being a relevant story while Cody was gone, and now Cody's back. It's just been so seamless now that he's in this story, especially with I think they topped it up with the Heyman promo, right? And he made it personal, right? And he was like, "Now I'm going to take it on your boy because you went too far." So it's going to be really interesting. And the last thing I want to say before we move on to Elimination Chamber is it is so nice to be able to watch Raw again because they have their central figure, right? Yeah. They've missed Cody so badly. Like I can't remember
now
last time.
Now you see it. Now you really see that point.
Well, and like each week, to be like when I go to SmackDown, I'm wanting to watch the Bloodline promos more than the matches, right? Because it's such a good storyline. And now, and I rewatch almost every single promo that they do, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've rewatched the ending to Royal Rumble. I've seen it 100 times because it's just so well done.
Not to mention WWE plays it over and over again too.
Because it's so good. It's just so brilliant. And also I showed it to you, and it's been reported that the WWE is doing Hollywood parodies for WrestleMania.
Goodness. They were
and the
fantastic.
Bloodline's going to do the Goodfellas. So I'm really looking forward to that. Brawl and Roots are doing 40-year-old version. That's going to be pretty funny too.
Love it.
But now I'm doing the same with Raw. Like I'm going back and watching Cody promos. And every time I'm waiting to see Cody like do something, I want to watch it, right? Because they have their central figure.
They do
now, and it just makes the show. Even though it's a 3-hour show, and it's really interesting how it's a 3-hour show. I think they're struggling a bit to actually where to book Cody because it's either in the middle of the show or the beginning, right? Like it's not in an awkward spot. Whereas like in SmackDown with 2 hours, it's either they put the Bloodline in at the beginning or the end. It's fairly simple. Where like I haven't noticed they've done the promo. They had a Cody match at the end, right? But like it was interesting. I thought it was interesting they put the Cody Sami promo in the middle of the show last on Monday. You think you wanted that in the beginning or maybe even the end?
Well, something that I've really noticed with Raw, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but since we've began 2023, they've utilized that extra timing in Raw to really focus the women's division. And I think you've really been able to see a few main event matches for the women. You've also seen some good mid-card matches and some good storylines building up there. They're giving attention to the division and they're building up stories in that division, which is so necessary. I would rather see a really good set of stories and build up and start building these characters because, and these main events than necessarily just end the show with Roman or Cody or something like that, because they're given opportunities that they're that we've been missing, right? We've talked about it before. You know, there were many times where you looked at the staleness of some of the storylines in the women's division. We continuously see Becky and Bianca, Becky and Bianca. We need to break away from that, and we need to start seeing those Shotzi's, those Livs, Raquel's, Natalia. We need to see Lacey Evans and not freaking just see promos of people, and we got to see other things going on, and I really like that what they're doing with that extra hour in Raw is utilizing more time to focus on things like this. I think they did a bang up job on Monday, being able to have Bianca in there, and kind of deny both of them that match, which was really cool, and kind of going off on a tangent here, but just I think being able to push that into the show. I don't mind if Cody's in the middle. I don't mind if he's in the beginning. Or
you had the women in the beginning and the end of the show, which was good to see too. Which you don't necessarily get to see on SmackDown because of the amount of time and the lack of talent. Really, unfortunately, there. I'm hoping at some point they'll be able to sort of.
It's getting better though. It's getting better.
It is. It certainly is. And
since Ronda's been off the air, it's been a bit better. But she's back now.
Heading to the tag division, so that would be a little bit better, right? And I think Charlotte's gonna carry the flag until Mania, I think, right? So,
and I'm fine with
anyways, that. let's head into the Elimination Chamber. It's for us. It's very exciting because it's in Canada, and we live in Canada, so it's nice for us. It's in the East Coast. We're in the West, so it's still. Same 5 o'clock.
It's still pretty far away from us, but
but it's exciting for it to come to Canada because I think Canada, from what I can gather, Canada has quite a rich history with wrestling. So it's always nice when we get, especially something a big one in Elimination Chamber. I know from what I can see, Elimination Chamber has kind of been like the filler pay-per-view before WrestleMania, right? And for the most part, the chamber matches haven't been. With a lot of stakes, and there's one of the two I would say is that because it's a U.S. title match, right? The second one actually links into Mania, which is cool. So exciting for it to be in Canada, in Montreal. SmackDown is going to be in Montreal as well. Yes. I think that's a brilliant idea.
And Monday's Raw is actually going to be in Ottawa.
They're going to stay in Canada, which will be great.
Canada,
and I don't know if they have done this in the past because they're also going to do it with Money in the Bank. They're going to do the SmackDown Friday at the O2 Arena, and then they're going to do Money in the Bank the next day. So SmackDown will be at noon our time on the Friday, so we'll have to watch it after work. So just your general thoughts on it being in Canada and your excitement level for this pay-per-view.
Well, I think this is the first time we've seen a pay-per-view in Canada for a while. I've seen every pay-per-view under the sun in Canada, and I've seen a WrestleMania in Canada, and they've all, I think our arenas and our attendance and everything that, like you said, there's a rich history of wrestling and wrestling fans here that we don't get a lot of taste of this very often. And I think all the shows that I've seen have all been very good. Even the SmackDowns and Raws that have been in Canada, I think have all been very good.
They
do well, and they're loud. And again, it comes down to that we don't get it a lot, just like in England and the UK, they don't get it a lot. So when they do, it's loud, right? I'm very excited for this pay-per-view. This is probably the most excited I've been for an Elimination Chamber since like 2005. That banger of a match, Elimination Chamber, that had Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Triple H, and the list goes on. It was a big one for the World Heavyweight title. It's exciting because you go into this Elimination Chamber and you honestly don't have your eyes don't go on one person to win this match. You look at the Elimination Chamber last year when Brock Lesnar got put into that Elimination Chamber. Once that happened, I knew he was winning. It was kind of just it was just kind of one of those things. But I look at this one and I'm like, it's interesting. It's a U.S. title Elimination Chamber, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. And you said it was kind of low stakes and everything, but this title has been coveted for a while. It's been the Raw title for quite some time, and I think there's still some importance to it right now. And if you look at both matches, like one's a mid-card title and the other one is only a number one contendership for the SmackDown's the Raw women's title. Much needed for that Raw women's title. We need somebody to have a good competitor. for Bianca. I think Bianca's basically gone through the entire roster on Raw at this point and basically beat everybody. So let's start with the men's. No, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's actually start with the match I'm least looking forward to, and that's the Rhea and Finn versus Beth and Edge match. The reason why I say I'm least looking forward to this is I think I fit in with a lot of the community right now believing that this should have just been a Rhea and Beth match. I would have been more compelled to watch this. But I do understand WWE's perspective of Edge doesn't have a lot of time left. He's getting on that point, that path to retirement. I think he said by August this year he's going to retire when they're back in Toronto. So he doesn't have that many matches left, so you want him to be on those Elimination Chambers, WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, and
well,
those
it's in
big
Canada
matches.
too, so I get that as well.
So I do understand that. So I'm all for seeing Edge. I do have a lot of respect for Edge, and I do like seeing him. So I understand where their perspective was coming from. I think it's going to be a solid match. You got, Finn Balor's another really good, tough competitor. I think it's going to be really good. And we're going to see Rhea actually face off against another tough competitor in the women's division who was, at her time, the top. She was at the top. She was the best in that division. And she's still in incredible shape right now. She tossed around Dom like it was nothing. Like it was a bag of potatoes.
Oh, that was awesome.
So I think it's going to be a good match. But it'll be a quick one. It'll be a filler, quick match. I think I wouldn't give it more than 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, definitely like a mid. Like hopefully not. Like hopefully we don't repeat what we saw at Royal Rumble, and the two mid card matches were garbage. I don't think we'll get that, but because the quality of this mixed tag is a lot higher. Like obviously Bianca and Alexa aren't low quality.
No,
it's just it didn't get booked very well. Apparently to a point where Alexa doesn't want to be around anymore.
Apparently,
poor Alexa. But I agree with you. Like, and I do wonder if it's also like Beth is technically retired, so she's like, yeah, I really don't want to go up against a super tough 26-year-old rising star, right? So I think you can do the mixed tag where you can get them in, because in a mixed tag, as soon as you tag the other gender, it's an automatic switch, right?
It's an automatic switch. Yeah, that's right.
So like as soon as Finn tags in Rhea or vice versa, like you got an automatic, and everyone's looking forward to seeing those two finally go at it, because for the most part Beth's been getting the better of Rhea. I think Rhea got one up on her in one of the Raws leading up to Elimination Chamber.
I think this is a really interesting match in terms of I don't know who could win this match. I mean, I don't know about you, but
I think it's Judgment Day.
I think it feels like it has to be Judgment Day, and the reason why I say that is Rhea needs momentum going into.
I think you have Rhea pin Beth just so it shows that she's beaten a legend, so that she's getting and she has that momentum heading into her match against Charlotte.
And I think you also need Finn to have a good matchup against Edge, because if you want to keep Judgment Day going, which I don't know if they will. It's really hard to say at this point, but if you want to keep Judgment Day going, I think they need some momentum in their side. They've taken a couple hits and lost a few matches recently, so I could see that happening. But then on the other hand, to have Edge probably win the last match he's going to have in Canada, at least a pay-per-view, I think would give a big pop to the fans. So I wouldn't be opposed either way. I wouldn't be unhappy either way. But I think just storyline makes sense that Rhea's trying to prove to Charlotte that she's different, that she's better, and she's better than Charlotte now. And I think to lose to Beth doesn't exactly make sense for that.
You could give Edge the win. You could have him pin Finn, and then have Rhea get distracted because
you could have her get angry too.
Beth goes after Dom, and she gets all hysterical.
That's true.
which I think it would be a good way if you wanted Edge to win. It'd be a good way to protect Rhea on top of it. You can have Rhea dominate the match, and you maybe even get some offense in on Edge.
Yeah.
And then just have her distracted in some way that Edge still gets the win, and you get that pop.
I agree. I also think that it's an opportunity if you want to give Edge the last win in Canada, kind of thing, and Rhea could separate herself a little bit. She gets really mad that it's Finn's fault that they lost the match. It's not her fault, right? It's not her. we could see her kind of separate herself a little bit from Judgment Day, because I foresee that's what's kind of going down the line. I do see Judgment Day becoming kind of a trio and not necessarily with her. We'll see, because again, this is another one where they have opportunity to go in different directions, I believe. So we'll see how.
Don't you want to see Dom like hang around Rhea after she wins at WrestleMania and be like that, like, you know?
Oh,
like
I want to see him at her beck and call. I want him.
Yeah,
I want
he's gold digging off
of the. Yeah.
He's gold digging off of the women's champ.
They built
That'd
that
be
off of what
fantastic.
the Valentine's Day segment where she had to end up paying, and then they're both good with the Twitter and all that stuff, and she posted the whole like, oh no, respect and like treat your kings, yada yada yada. So it's interesting, but you did see she kind of seemed annoyed in that segment too, so that's why I say you might see the separation. But
it's like Dom's the dweeb, right? And like the group just like knows it.
What do you mean
but
Dom's the dweeb, Jeff?
Exactly.
Dom's the ex-con, man. He's done hard time.
Tough.
He's done hard time.
He knows some things.
He might hear this podcast and he might come after you.
Yeah. You call his boys from the
from the block,
from the prison.
Yeah. But it's good.
Man,
it's good work that they're doing. I love Judgment Day. But I think that match. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I think even though it's the least, I would agree, it's the least one I'm looking forward to too. But I'm still looking forward to it. You know what I mean? Like when it came to Royal Rumble, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm looking forward to the Bray Wyatt match, like because he hasn't had a match in a year, and I'm looking forward to the Bianca Alexa match. But like, this one, I'm looking like, yeah, I'm not like it's the least favorite out of all the matches, but I'm still actually quite looking forward to. You know what I mean? Like the excitement level is a bit higher.
It's always nice to see Edge too in a match,
and the quality of it is definitely, I think, going to be a bit higher because of the workers in it, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of again Bianca and Alexa, but that's more of a booking thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Talent quality. So there's that one. So you're thinking Judgment Day wins, or
I'm gonna think that it makes the most sense for Judgment Day to win. Yeah. I'm gonna say that's probably gonna be maybe 3.5 out of 5 kind of match. It won't be the greatest, but it'll be good.
I've convinced myself now that actually Edge will win, so you can get that Canadian pop, because obviously I don't think there are other Canadian boys going to win later on the card. So I will say that they will book Rhea strong, but
it won't be her fault that they take the loss, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and Edge will pin Finn, and that'll set up
and that'll settle the Judgment Day stuff, the tension between them two, right?
Well, sort of. I think they still want to do that cage match between him and Edge. So if Edge pins him, then maybe it can continue that. So we'll see. I'm very curious about that.
What I'm really curious about, and I want to move on to, is the men's elimination chamber match.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say I'm really curious about this is because this is a very interesting match with some broad spread of competitors.
So you got Montez Ford, Johnny Gargano, Bronson Reed, Austin Theory, who's the champ, Seth Rollins, and then Damian Priest.
I don't have a clear, concise winner out of this match. I don't know about you.
Isn't that exciting? Like, you actually don't know who's going to win? Because you could conceivably argue. You could argue any of them to win, right?
Any of them could
Bronson
win.
Reed, who just came back, and Gargano, you could easily push them, right? Montez has been pushing for a singles run for a long time. Makes sense to have first.
Damian Priest, in my opinion, is also very deserving of a singles title again.
And it'd be good to have Judgment Day to have some gold, right? And of course, Seth, you can always give an argument to have a belt.
Yeah, always.
And then Theory, you continue to push Theory, right? But I can, out of all of them, I can actually see Theory being the one not winning, because it sounds like he's heading for a match with Cena. You don't necessarily need a belt for that one.
No. I was gonna just say the same thing. Out of what I do know, or what I do suspect, is I'm convinced Theory's coming out of this match without the title. He's losing.
You think he will lose, hey?
Yeah, I think he will lose this belt. I also don't think Seth's winning, and the reason why I think, again, you're right. I think Seth, it's easy and compelling enough to put a belt on him, but we've seen him already twice as a U.S. title over the little while. They've had a bit of a feud, and I think their feud together is what's going to be their demise in this match. They're going to get too distracted with one another that they're going to get pinned by better competitors.
And Seth's you know who Seth's facing at WrestleMania, so he doesn't need a belt for that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's Logan Paul for those who don't who hasn't been watching Seth lately.
I feel that Bronson Reed is just getting an opportunity to be in a match. I don't think he's going to win.
He's a good worker, so I'm looking forward to him being in the match. Like that's kind of which actually we'll get to the women. I wish Piper Niven got into the women's because she's really good too. Anyways, we'll focus on the women's when we get there.
But I don't necessarily look at Bronson Reed as he's ready yet. I don't think. I think there's other competitors
US champ,
that are more.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
Gargano is a complete toss up for me. I think he's a good worker, but he's been booked very poorly.
And that's the reason why I think he won't win, because it wouldn't make sense from a booking perspective, because he's been booked so poorly. Unless like Dexter Lumis like hacks his way into the ring somehow, and because that's what faces do, right? Like they have a machete, and I agree with the analysis. I don't understand how Dexter Lumis is a face, but anyways,
we'll move on from Dexter Lumis. He's being booked poorly too.
That leaves Montez Ford and Damian Priest,
which are both very compelling to win. I can see both winning, and this is where I come down to I don't know who's going to win this match, because you have argument for both. You could tie up you could bring it up to Montez Ford beats Priest, and Montez Ford then feuds with Angelo Dawkins, right? I think we've seen some sort of them not getting along perfectly over the last few months.
And Dawkins has been taking most of the pins lately too.
Dawkins has also been losing the matches for them. And we know that, one, he wants to do a singles run. 2, WWE wants him to do a singles run. And 3, he's just at that point in his career where I look at him and I'm like, he should be a singles competitor. He's
if you look at the Street Profits too, what more can they do?
Lose?
Which they've been doing. Right? Like, so I think you've taken, because they've been together for a long time.
Quite a while. Yeah, a few years.
Right? Like, and we're potentially seeing the end of Alpha Academy too, with Otis brilliantly going into Maximum Male Models.
Otis.
Oh, my apologies, Otis. I'm very excited for that. So I guess so. But if Damian wins, like, what do you think you would do with the U.S. title then?
There's some interesting speculation online right now that Damian is actually the one that wants to separate himself from the Judgment Day. There's some speculation that he seems that, he joined the Judgment Day first, right? He was Edge's first guy, and the reason why he joined, the whole ideology behind Edge, was to get yourselves out of the shadows. Don't fall for the trap of the fans, and do something for you and grow yourself and worry about yourself as a competitor and continue to be better. And they've kind of lost that philosophy and almost fallen down a little bit, but now we're starting to see Rhea getting an opportunity, and the tag titles, they just had an opportunity, and now Priest has another opportunity, and Priest has been very good. Like, you look at him in his matches, he's improved a lot. He's been very good. He is a former US title holder before the whole Judgment Day thing, and I think there's also an argument there. That he could win, because if he does win, it gives some gold to Judgment Day. It changes the thing. But what do you do with him kind of leading that group that could get to a point where maybe there is some separation again, because he sees himself and he says, I've held this group together. I've been doing better. You guys are still taking losses. What the hell is Dom doing here? Like, and he may start pushing himself out. I don't really want to see Judgment Day end, but I could see that being a reason to end Judgment Day if we have 2 champions out of the 4.
I think for me, because it's WrestleMania season and there's no other real pay-per-view before that, so you're going to have a month and a half roughly to tell the story. I think it's more compelling to me for Montez Ford to win, because then you can take that time to really, really stretch out and show the dissension in Street Profits. And I'm telling you, I would very much like to see an Angelo Dawkins versus Montez Ford.
At WrestleMania?
Yeah. That'd be a hell of a match, I think, because like if you watch their matches, they're both so good. They're high flying. Dawkins has improved so much, right? Like they could have an absolute banger of a match together. I think
we could see an interesting WrestleMania, as we may see the demise of 2 tag teams. In my opinion, we may very well see the Street Profits face each other. We very well may see Jimmy and Jay face each other as well at WrestleMania, and I think both storylines could be there. But I like your idea there. I think that, you know, we kind of have seen this for a long time, and what the heck else do you do with the Street Profits at this point? Like, they haven't won titles for a while. They had some great matches against the Usos, but it didn't get anywhere. And then on TV, they've just been having matches where they've just been losing. They haven't been doing anything but losing.
And this is what I've heard. Wrestle Talk, they talked about it in that, like, you can use the U.S. title as the catalyst to break it down, because you can have Montez Ford going, "I'm amazing," right, and sort of like start talking
almost
down,
like an ego, yeah,
talking down to Dawkins, and eventually, I don't know, and have Dawkins either do the heel turn or vice versa. Ford does the heel turn and turns on Dawkins and says, "I don't need you anymore."
I could see
and
that
then
working.
You just tell that story. Like, it would be, I think it would be, to me, it's more compelling. It's a more compelling story than the other 5 guys and them winning, right? Because Gargano doesn't really have much going on. Reed's brand new. Theory, you know,
you could keep the title on Theory, but I just don't see it.
Like, especially if he has the program with Cena, which it really seems like it's going to happen. You don't need a title for that. Seth's going for Logan Paul.
Do you want my truth opinion about Theory?
Yeah, sure.
I say you pull him off for this U.S. title card. You throw him in the top title card right now. I think he's done great work. I think that he's really showed he doesn't need the damn U.S. title. Let's put him in a program with Cena. Let's have him win against Cena. And let's throw him into contendership at some point, especially when Roman's not in the picture.
Exactly. And then I think they really want to split the belts after that.
He doesn't need to win a title yet, but to have him in contention, because I think that last year where like they stripped him basically of that money in the bank, and that was just a bit of a mess. I think he really took a hit on his character. He really took a hit on his credibility. I think a lot of people were kind of deterred of the idea of him moving forward into that lineup of talented superstars. But if you pull the title off him and you get him into that realm of top tier guys, you know, he's already had great promos against Bobby Lashley. He's done good work against Seth Rollins. Very good work with Seth Rollins.
Even his promo explaining why he cashed in the U.S. title was good.
Yeah,
like,
he's done good work against Dolph Ziggler too, and I think like he's shown that, and he's now doing some good work with here and there with MVP and stuff. Yeah. So, you know, I see him as he is the future. He is the guy that's going to be not necessarily the best in the company, but he's going to be at that level.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So I would personally pull the title off him now. I think it makes sense. And
this is it's like a spectacular way to do it in the chamber, right? And give it to someone who you can really do a good story with the U.S. title, because if it is Cena, you don't need the title in theory, right? And he can just sort of beat him on his own merit, right? Because he's been throwing shade at it. He's like, "Oh, the champ is here." He's been saying a lot of Cena things when he's been champ. So
he always said he was a big Cena fan growing up. So there is history there too, right? And I think, you know, Seth needs to get out of this U.S. title picture. He needs to go on to the main card, and it's a really good way for them to keep continuing their feud as well. They can start feuding for that contendership at that number 1 spot, right? And you're going to look at, you know, Seth. A lot of jokes that Theory plays on Seth is you're old, you're the dinosaur, you're at the end of your career, and I'm at the beginning of my career, and you can continue that feud in a top
and
match.
You can throw Theory up against Cody too, right? And have a bit of it could almost be MJF Cody, like, if you think about it. Actually, Cody put Theory over MJF over. You wouldn't do that here yet, but you could have a good match between. You can have him
showcased,
Exactly, right? Especially leading up to Mania. Cody will win, obviously. But I think that's what you can do. If he has the U.S. title, you can't really do that, because you're obviously not going to have Cody go after the U.S. title right now. They did that when he was feuding with Rollins when Vince was in charge, and it didn't really look awesome. But I think that could be a program you could do. But anyways, let's shuffle over to the other the
women's contender match.
No, let's save that one. I'm actually really excited for that one. I want to talk about Lesnar and Lashley.
Oh yeah, the Lesnar and Lashley match. Their trios of the match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much to say about this match.
It's funny. Like we said that it was the Beth Phoenix thing, but actually, this is the one I'm actually least looking forward to. Actually, I don't have any major feelings about it.
We just saw this. We just saw this match at
in Saudi.
At Saudi, right? And it was a quick finish. I think that match was booked really poorly. I would rather see this match be one where you showcase Bobby Lashley a little better.
Well, I think they're building to the Hurt Business.
But I do think Lesnar comes out on top. I think.
See, I don't. I think the Hurt Business gets formed.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I do. I agree with you that the Hurt Business is going to happen now. The story leads to that, but I think Lesnar is going to pull off a cheap win or some way he's going to win where Bobby Lashley yet again makes a mistake because he's been making a lot of mistakes to lose, and he lost to Lesnar last time by a mistake. I think that what we'll see is, he may lose by like a mistake, or Lesnar will pull off a cheap one on him, and then the Hurt Business will come out and beat the crap out of Lesnar. I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see kind of the Hurt Business come out and protect Lashley after the match, and then I don't think they'll get involved too much during the match because these are two beasts. You don't really need to see. You want to showcase
it, right? Like there's a reason why like people want to see this match, right? It's been booked kind of weird too. Like I agree with the analysis there. Like the contract signing on Monday was kind of meh, and I get what they're going for. Like they're showing that Lashley is moving towards the Hurt Business, right? Because he's all in the suit, talking with his managers, blah blah blah, right? Like.
Well, Lashley's clearly going heel, right? It's clear that it's been on for a while, but Lashley's getting back to this heel point, and I think Brock's becoming more of a pure face, where like before he was kind of like that anti-hero. He wasn't necessarily a face, but I think he's becoming a pure face now, and we're seeing that. And, we're seeing vulnerabilities from him. I don't know. The match could go either way, really, like the win. But I do the only reason I thought about that was like it's almost like Lesnar wins, and the payback that Lashley gets is they get to beat the crap out of him with the whole Hurt Business afterwards. But I do think this is where we see the Hurt Business back together. It only makes sense.
I just want Brock Lesnar,
with the addition of Omos this time.
Yeah, he'll have Omos for sure. And I just want Brock Lesnar to be able to have sex with his wife and not think about Bobby Lashley. That's what I want. Poor man.
I get into bed with my wife, and then I think. I get into bed with my wife, and then 4 or 5 hours later, I think about Bobby Lashley. That was good. That was. I think that was improvised as well. I don't think he meant to do that.
Well, he stopped himself too. He was like, "Wait a minute, I should probably stop myself before I get in trouble."
It's good.
Some pretty good promos on Raw these past few weeks. And just before we move on to it, it's interesting because it was such a weird build up to Rumble, and I think it's because they had such a long time.
It was a crappy build up to Rumble. There was a lot of time where we were just like, "What's next? Are they even going to throw another match in?" Or like we were kind of anticipating a bad Rumble at one point.
Like this build up's been fantastic.
It's been better.
Like they got the chamber qualifying matches right away. Like they made it interesting. They did different types of qualifying matches. So the build up actually has been pretty fantastic. And again, it's really going to help having the SmackDown Go Home show in Montreal. So that's gonna. I think they've done a fantastic job, certainly promoting this pay-per-view. And it's interesting because they only had 3 weeks to do it. I think they've done a really good job.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I actually look at this pay-per-view and I'm looking forward to it. I think I was looking forward to the Rumble because of the 2 Rumble matches more than anything.
What's the Rumble,
this pay-per-view, right? I'm looking forward to the matches. Like I think the card's going to be pretty good. We're going to have some answers going into WrestleMania, and I think that's really interesting. But let's move on to the next chamber match, because I think that's going to be more.
Which I think will be the co-main event. I think that will be the co-main event. I think use the same formula you did for Royal Rumble. You should open with the men's chamber, and then do the two non-chamber title matches we talked about. Then you do the co-main as the women's chamber, because it has more stakes, in my opinion, than the U.S. title. And then you do the main event, which we'll talk about. So, so we have Asuka, Carmella, Liv Morgan, Natalya, Nikki Cross, Raquel Rodriguez. winner gets a shot at the Raw title at WrestleMania against Bianca Belair.
So something interesting to bring up in this match is you have 3 Raw talent and you have 3 SmackDown talent. As we see that the Raw talent being Rhea is facing Charlotte, that means inevitably she may move to SmackDown. So I think your answer here is one of the 3 talent from SmackDown are probably going to win this match because we're probably going to see a 1-for-1 pullover. That's the only reason why I think that. Otherwise, I would say 100% Asuka's winning this match.
But who on the SmackDown side can dethrone Bianca?
In my opinion, the only one right now is you either do Liv or you do Raquel because they've been wanting to give Raquel a big push. But I just don't see Raquel as being ready yet.
But then do you return Raquel heel then if she wins? Because Bianca's obviously a pure face, right? Right now, Liv and Raquel are listed as faces. So if you do have those two win, one of those two win, do you turn them heel? I mean, and Liv flirted with a heel turn.
She did.
They seem to move away from that.
We've also kind of flirted with the idea of her being with the Wyatt Six and Bray Wyatt. Mm-hmm. So there's some tie-in to a few different things, but the only reason I say that is because it makes sense in a transitional 1-for-1. Mm-hmm. The only reason I say that. Now, I think it makes sense that they're pushing Asuka with a new character. She's actually heel. I don't think Asuka's ever fully heel. I think she's kind of always that anti-hero. I don't think she's really, that bad. But, the problem is we've seen Asuka and Bianca before. We have seen that match and Bianca's come out on top. So what's to say that Asuka wins this time? Well, maybe it is because she's changed characters. Maybe it is because she's heel now. But then you're at a loss in Raw because you are at a point where you've lost your biggest talent on Raw to SmackDown, and you're not getting anything in return. So that's why it's an interesting way they could book it. But I also kind of look at this match as I'm not convinced that for sure one of the women wins and takes this away. I'm not convinced that there's one specific person that could easily win this match and move forward. I think there's a lot of good competitors in here. I think and you got a good diverse group of skill sets.
I like how they throw Natalya in there just because she's from Canada.
Well, it's Natalya, you got to have her in there because she's from Canada. I think so. Carmella being on a return again, she's got some fan base. Yeah. I think people do like her.
I wish they put Piper Niven in there. I agree with the analysis. I think she would have been to me it's like Bronson Reed, like a really good worker who knows how to put on a good show, right? Like in the 4-way match she did to get into the chamber, like just fantastic, right? But mind you, you got your Raquels in there, right? Like you could have some. Like you got some power in there already, so I get it. But yeah, I mean, because like that's the thing. Like, really, I see it's Asuka. I think you should never come back with this really cool character change at the Rumble, and people are clearly scared of her. And I love how in the match, the 3-on-3 match they had at Raw, she just attacked everybody. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of Nikki Cross-esque a little bit. But I think it's her, and I think if it's going to be an alternative, I agree with you that it's going to be probably Raquel. Because as much as I want it to be Liv, because I think Liv is main event worthy, I think she actually showed that with her title run. She was just booked so terribly. And I think she'd have a very good match with Bianca. But I think if you book Liv right now, you wouldn't believe she would win. Right, just because of how terribly they booked her. Whereas if you book a Raquel, if you book an Asuka, there is that belief that they could beat Bianca.
Another history too with Liv is she's got that feud and history with Rhea. So keeping her on SmackDown could lead to them fighting off for a title shot later on too.
That'd be a good program for sure, especially because like they were tag partners and then they broke off, right?
They were tag champions and they broke off.
Yeah.
And then basically Rhea was kind of blaming Liv that the losses were coming from her and that she wasn't good enough, and then Liv ended up going to SmackDown and winning the title. And I think that's a good history, but I also think there's some history there between Raquel and Bianca being in NXT, and Raquel and Rhea, believe it or not, are actually very, very close friends in real life. They're quite close, and they've worked together a lot in NXT, and I think stylistically they match up really well, her and Rhea. So you could argue that maybe she stays on SmackDown too to keep things more interesting with Rhea, because I think Rhea's definitely, I think they're in the path that she's going to take the title at WrestleMania.
Most likely, I think you get a pretty big revolt if she wins at WrestleMania. If Charlotte wins at WrestleMania, but
I also think that Bianca is her time to lose too. I think we've been thinking about this for a little while too, and I think it's her time to lose the title to someone else and get that title circulating around Raw again. She's had the title for quite some time now, since last WrestleMania, I think. So I do see she's losing that title at WrestleMania, and it makes a lot of sense.
If you think about, like, for those 6 women, who's the most over? It's Asuka, right? And if she ended up beating Bianca, people who love Bianca would be like, that sucks, but I like Asuka, right? And especially with that character, like it's a cool little character that you can go on a bit of a run with as champion, right? Because everyone's just terrified of her, right? And hey, you probably do a rematch at Backlash, probably.
Yeah, for sure,
right?
Yeah.
Which it's rumors circling that Backlash is going to be in Saudi this year, so that'll be interesting.
We'll see.
So if especially if Zayn wins anything.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, no. So I do think it's Asuka. Are you on the same page as me, or are you thinking somebody else?
I say that it makes the most sense to be Asuka, and if the only reason why I think it would be any of the SmackDown competitors would just be that flip over.
Yeah.
So I could see Raquel winning. They do seem to be wanting to give her a push.
Well, so she took Ronda to the limit, so she showed that she could do it.
She's deserving of a push. I think she's doing quite well. So like I could see that, and you know what, that match would be good too. I wouldn't be opposed to that idea of that match either. So.
I think it'd be a very good match. I would agree, but it's almost like there's like all this mid card talent in the women's division. It's almost like you should have a belt or something,
Yeah, you should.
To recognize all that amazing mid card talent, like the men have that,
Yeah, I know. It's just
and they've literally tossed one belt in the garbage since
one of the things that AEW and Tony Khan is doing well is having that mid card belt on both sides, and I think it's showing because you get to
minus the women's tag belts, which that really threw me off when I actually figured that.
Let's put it into perspective. I've been thinking about that, right? Who do you tag together? It's the same problem they have in WWE right now. There's not a lot of compelling tag. They don't build tag teams on the women's division. They've been having problems with that. They
had Toxic Attraction in NXT. They just broke them up, which was probably the most compelling tag team they had.
Great job, Mr. Shawn Michaels. Just pull it right out of your storyline from when you kicked Marty Jannetty in the face and threw him into the glass wall. It was almost the exact replica, 1-for-1, and you just did it again and mistakenly did this because, to your point, now you just lost your best tag team on NXT. So again, why have tag titles if you're not going to have tag teams?
Very good point. So we'll move on to the main event, and this one. So Royal Rumble was more about the story. It was never about the match. No one would ever believe was never winning. It was more about the after the match, right? It was the final test for Sami Zayn. Now, this match, however, I think, is so excitingly about both. It's about the match, and it's about what's going to happen after the match.
And what's interesting is this isn't just about Roman and Sami.
Exactly.
This is about the whole bloodline. This is more about, I almost feel like this story is more about Jay and the demise of the bloodline than it is this match in Roman and Sami. But there is a lot of history with Roman and Sami, right? He's kind of threw him through the trenches, and it's been tough for him. And I think Sami's fed up, and man, I think we know deep down Roman's gonna win.
I do.
But hasn't WWE done such a good job that you're legitimately convinced Sami could win? Do you know what I mean, though? Like,
well, they threw up the "or" on the WrestleMania poster for Cody. Like, that's how
but
they're
don't
much
you
making
see
you
what
think
I'm
about
saying? Like,
Mhm.
there's been lots of matches where we've sat here and we've talked about Roman going up against X, right? And we've saw those matches, and we always said, Roman's gonna win. Roman's gonna win. Roman's gonna win. And it was no question about it. There was no question. There was not even a slight hesitation that Roman was gonna win. But damn, WWE has really soaked you into this story to convince you that Sami's winning this match,
or has a legitimate shot.
And I think that they're gonna break everyone's heart because Sami's not gonna win this match.
Mm-hmm.
But they've done a good job at making you think he will. And I think that's storytelling right there, because if you can do that, if you can get a guy over like Sami Zayn, who Vince put in a freaking match against Johnny Knoxville last year, and now he's going to face Roman Reigns at
for the title in his
hometown. Personally, Jeff, if this were me and I was booking this match, Sami wins this match. I think if it were me booking this match, you get that Canadian pop that Sami will never get again. And never get a better opportunity than winning a title in his hometown.
I feel like we had the same conversation with Drew McIntyre.
we did, but it wasn't Drew's hometown, right? This is even deeper.
It is, yeah, it's where he grew up.
This could be Sami's like one opportunity that he could ever get to win a world title. He's never won a world title, not in ROH, not in WWE, he's never won a world title. Now, if he wins, you have him win and you have him lose the title right away. And that's fine. That's why I think you just do it for the pop, you do it for the fans, you do it for Sami, and all that work of what he's put in over the last few months, it's a thank you. You have him win.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the idea, that gives you the idea right away, right? Like, oh, he won. So it's going to be Cody versus Sami at WrestleMania, right? So you're in your head that that's going to be the match. And no, it's not going to be, because Roman's going to use his rematch clause to get the titles back. But you have that in your mind for a brief moment, and it makes you happy because the bloodline has made us sad for a year. We deserve something. But
yeah,
all in all, this isn't about this. We just talked about it. This is about Jay. This is about Roman. This is about the bloodline on its own. And I think they're really throwing us off right now, because they're saying things like, don't show up, the Usos aren't going to be there.
Oh, they're so showing up. Absolutely.
They're at least one of them is showing up. At least one of them will be there. And
it's probably Jay, if it's anybody.
It's probably Jay, and I think everyone
Solo can go, right? Solo doesn't have, Solo was in the UK, so he's fine to for sure go. And Heyman just said the Usos. He didn't say Solo, so Solo probably will come.
Solo will be there. Now, what angle do you go? Because you can have Jay turn on Roman, and you can have Jay start the crack in the bloodline that breaks it up. Or you have Jay turn on Sami, and you have Roman win again, which I think, honestly, will make a lot of people really, really mad. I think it'll make a lot of the people in the community, a lot of fans, really, really mad if Jay shows absolutely no signs of breaking up the bloodline and just kind of falling in line once again. I think it'll make people mad. But I think what we could see here is we could see an opportunity of Jay second-guessing his choices, and turning on Roman and protecting Sami or something along that line. I think ultimately the way I want this to turn out is I want Jay to somehow convince Jimmy to leave the bloodline, to somehow convince Solo, because these are his brothers. He may say, yeah, Roman's your cousin. Yeah, he's your blood, but I'm your twin. You know, at the end of the day, I'm your twin.
I'm your brother.
They started talking about this a little bit on Friday night, right? Like Jimmy was saying this, like, you know, we're twins. Like, we're twins. I'm your brother. I'm always there for you, right? I mean, Jay, sorry. And he's like, I'm always there for you. I got you, man. But then when Jimmy asked him, like,
Are you in?
or are you out? He said, I don't know, man. I don't know. And he's very on the fence. And then when he saw Sami, he gave him the fist pump. You could easily go and have him turn and have him side with Sami. And I think it makes for a compelling story going forward. But we know how much WWE likes the Bloodline and really wants to keep them together as long as they possibly can. So we're going to have to see something happen where I don't know. Do they turn on Jay? Is the question. Do they turn on Jay? Are they going to turn on Jay? Or does Roman start to try to get Jay back in line by turning on Jimmy? Because that's how, when you think about it, back when Roman was facing Jay and Jimmy and all that, and Jimmy was kind of out of action and it was just Jay and Roman, I remember it was Jay was getting beat down so bad that Jimmy had to throw in the towel.
I quit match.
And abide by Roman's rules of the Bloodline and join the Bloodline because he didn't want to see his brother get hurt. Do we see the flip of that now? Because really, Jimmy didn't want to join. Jay didn't want to join in the beginning, right? They thought Roman was crazy. And now we're starting to see that again. But does Roman use this against Jay to hurt Jimmy, or vice versa? Does he attack Jay again and then Jimmy turns on Roman later or whatever the case? Do we see another turn like this? We see another flip like this with those two. But I think this story is going to be really around them. There's going to be a lot of distraction, and I think this is going to lead up to them losing the titles. They're going to lose their own SmackDown titles soon because they're gonna get too distracted with this ongoing Bloodline crap. And my curiosity is, how does Solo fit in this? How does Solo fit into attacking his brothers?
So here, don't want to give you my
I want to hear what you have to think. Yeah.
So I think how you book it is you have Sami come out with KO.
Oh, so you think KO is going to be there? I actually had the anticipation that KO won't be there.
Oh no, he'll definitely be there. They need that for the pop, right? I mean, they put Natalya in the chamber because she's from Canada. Like, they're definitely going to have KO.
Good point.
So either you have KO come with him, or at some point during the match, maybe Solo starting to screw around, right, and cheat. KO comes in, and solves that problem, right? So the match will continue. There will be some sort of, as per usual in a Roman match, the ref will be knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
So then, how I would
then Brock Lesnar. I'm kidding.
F5 everybody. Or RKO. Randy Orton comes out RKO out of nowhere. Sami for some strange reason. What I think you should do, and I'll explain why, is you then have the Usos come out when the referee's down, or even just Jay, right? I don't think you necessarily need Jimmy in this essence, because you can tell that story after. But it's for sure Jay comes out, and then you have this stare down, which would be just, gosh, so brilliant, between Roman, Sami, and Jay, and who is Jay going to side with, right? You have his family, and you have this guy who has shown you how screwed up the situation is, and then you have Jay superkick Sami. You have him turn on him, and then you have Roman beat Sami, and then there's a post-match beatdown of Sami, and then you have Cody come out for the save. Because what you do in that essence, and how you book it moving forward, is you can turn the heat up on Roman because he beat Sami in his hometown and starts brutally hurting him like he was doing
with KO.
You don't have to do the same kind of mafia style like they did. But then you get that, you just turn that heat up, and then everyone's going to want to be like, oh, Cody.
And we haven't seen any interaction between Roman and Cody yet.
And he let it slip on Harold Hawani's show that he's going to be in Montreal, right? So you got to have him come out for the save, or you don't even need to have him wrestle. You have his music hit, and then you have him cut a promo against Roman, saying, "Oh, look, basically like yeah, whatever. Like it's time for you and me." To start talking about our match together now that you've beaten Sami, right? Because you can do it because you've shown that Sami and Cody are aligned by having them in the same ring on Monday. So what you do there then is you build up this match between Roman and Cody, which they're pretty much building up to as since Cody won the Rumble, right? The posters and things like that, and you can sort of you can really shift that excitement to Cody's going to dethrone him, and then what you can do also is shift some of that heat on Jay, so the Usos can face off against Sami and KO at WrestleMania, and it won't feel as like, because I know I said after the Rumble that it would feel like a consolation prize, but if you shift the heat correctly, then it won't feel like a consolation prize, because if it's booked correctly in one Mania weekend, you have the Usos dropping the belts, and you have Roman dropping the belts. The bloodline, therefore, it's done, right? And then you can tell the story of the bloodline fully crumbling after Mania. And how Solo fits in there? Oh yeah, okay, Solo will fit in just by fighting with KO, because you have to have KO there, right? I think that's the, and I've been listening to much just analysis, right? So it's not all my thoughts. It's just I'm combining my thoughts and what I've been hearing, because I think that's how you should do it. Like, would Sami being in a triple threat at Mania upset me? No. I think he's very deserving of a belt, a top belt. But I think with how they've told this story, and how good it is, I think this is how you should do it, especially with it being in Montreal, with it being Sami's hometown. You can just really just turn up that heel heat on Roman, right? So you can have him against the ultimate face in Cody, and then Cody can be the one to do the save, right? And maybe it is Cody comes into the ring and does a crossroads on Roman. Like, that would be amazing, right? It would really end the pay-per-view very well on a very high note, right? Because you got to see this amazing match, to see this amazing story in the bloodline, and then you get to then you now have Cody on top of it, because then you can further the story moving forward, because Sami and KO and Cody can go up against the bloodline, because they're going to go. Sami and KO can do the tag part, and then obviously Cody's going to go up against Roman.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Honestly, like, for the longest time, I haven't been thinking about KO even being involved. But it does make sense for him to be there. It is his hometown as well. So it does really make sense for him to be there to get a pop.
Because, like, normally I don't like wrestlers losing in their hometown, but I think if you do it in the way that you turn the heat up on Roman, to sort of even show how much how much more heroic Cody can be, right?
Then it puts the light on Cody, really, to be that hero, to knock him down.
And they've been doing it so well so far, and especially if he comes in for the save, and then like at the end you see Cody picking up Sami off the ground, right? Like, that's just beautiful.
It's almost like they don't have to keep beating him down too much. Like, it could just be Cody and Sami in the ring together, and he could just kind of like get Sami back up onto his feet and say, like, I'm really proud of like the effort you put in. Like, he's kind of like in that state, and then
or even
he calls
just
Roman.
finish with the, like, have Cody come down to the ring, do a crossroads on Roman, whatever, KO super kicks someone, and he's at, but like, just, you want that picture in my mind of Cody picking Sami up from the dust and saying, okay, we're going to do this together, because that's what they did on Monday. He was pumping him up, saying, like, yeah, you can do this. Like, so I can see them utilizing that in such a good way, because then you have the force of good, basically, which is KO, Sami, and Cody, go up against the bloodline. That's, to me, the most credible threat to the bloodline probably in ever. Right? Right? Because you have 3 superstars, right, going up against these people.
And you've had KO go against Roman continuously, but not against the Usos. So,
well, he's beaten the Usos multiple times.
Yeah, so
right?
it's an easier match against the Usos, and like him and Sami. And I think that this match between Sami and Roman it'll come very close to Sami winning. Like, there'll be a couple pinfalls where it'll be like inches away or something, or like you said, like Solo pulls the referee out or something like that. Like, it'll be very, very, really, really close, and to the point where you think Sami's gonna win. And I will say this: I'm not into the idea of a triple threat at WrestleMania. the reason why
Yeah.
I think that is just because I know a lot of people think it could be a possibility, but I think it really takes away from Cody's story if they do that. Like Cody
No,
being
I
the
think it's
one to.
I think it's just how you have to book it. I
Yeah.
think you gotta use the Montreal to turn the heat up on Roman, so that you can have this awesome match against them at WrestleMania, and then you have Jay is the one that turns on Sami, because Jay is actually, if you think about the story of the Bloodline, Jay and him were the first ones to really go at it and build that strong bond. So him actually turning on Sami is quite significant if you think about it, right? Because he's the one that stood up for him. He rolled out of the ring in Royal Rumble. So and you can tell that story moving forward. You can even do it the same where what KO was doing with Sami is like, yeah, I know you're in the Bloodline, but I know you're really not in the Bloodline. He could do the same thing with Jay. Like, yeah, I know you are with the Bloodline right now, but I know you aren't fully invested, right? And you can use that story moving into WrestleMania, where that's why Sami and KO will actually beat them, because they don't really want to be doing this anymore.
Fair. I'm indifferent about Sami and KO winning the tag titles, to be honest. I'll have to see how it goes. I kind of feel like it's a moment for me. Like, if they win the titles, it's kind of.
But I agree with.
But I do agree that it makes sense.
It's if they do the story well, and I think
if
they
they
will.
do the story well, they have to do it well, though.
Yeah, they've shown that they can do it in a good way, and the nice thing is they have a long runway to really drag this out, which will be good.
I think a lot of people are really up for the idea of Jay turning on Roman, and I think that's why.
I think you can tell that story after Mania, and I've seen a poster of like SummerSlam. It's Jay versus Roman. Absolutely, let's have that match again, right? It needs to happen, but need to have the Bloodline crumble first.
Yeah.
For it to work.
Because then Roman can say it's your fault that the Bloodline crumbled. And then
exactly, because Roman's ego is smashed. But we'll stop there, because I'm sure we could talk eons about this story, because it's just done so well. But as I forgot to say in the beginning, please, as Roman would say, smash the subscribe button. Give us a like, and we're also on the audio side, which is Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But as I always say, my beautifully bearded friend, super excited for Elimination Chamber. It's going to be a good pay-per-view. But thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy Elimination Chamber, and we'll catch you at the next one.